So I wanted to make a video today specifically about AI SEO. I have had a full week of meetings about this topic, clients that we're working with at our agency, and this topic keeps coming up. And so I'm going to keep reiterating it on my channel to create a database of information about this topic because I'm experimenting a lot. We're sending thousands of prompts to GPT, getting a return and seeing what's ranking and what's not ranking and why. And I want to keep talking about this topic as much as possible. So I have a presentation here up today that I'm going to be walking you guys through, and it's going to be showing you a lot of evident information on how to actually optimize for AI SEO. There's a ton of terms for it: AEO, LLMO, there's GEO, there's AI SEO. Doesn't matter how you want to say it. The search terms for this category are absolutely exploding. Like, this is an exploding topic right now. It's an exploding category. And for you doing digital marketing, anything that's exploding or trending upwards, you may want to consider and you may want to focus on that, because if you don't, competitors are going to do so much quicker than you. So what I'm showing you right now is the topic best AI tools for marketing. You can see it's absolutely exploding. And this is for every category, right? Even something like digital marketing agency is exploding. So people searching for digital marketing agencies right now, that topic is continually rising. And the reason for that is because people feel overwhelmed with the amount of AI options out there. They feel overwhelmed with the amount of AI tools that are coming out really quickly. So this is the perfect opportunity for you to get really acclimated with AI SEO, and specifically how to optimize your website, your client's website, whatever business you're working with, to get more traffic for the search engines. And you can see this is evident based on the agency related terms growing. You can see digital marketing kind of took a little standstill, but it is exploding. People are searching for agencies, specifically the ones that can position themselves in the AEO world, in the AI SEO world. So today, I really want to talk about a couple of things. Is one, the exact strategy that I'm using to rank our clients in search engines, in the LLMs as well. And then two, talk a little bit about the stage of AEO right now and what you should really be paying attention to, and some of the tools that I'm building that you can utilize to actually track this stuff and take execution on it. We were at a sales meeting today. We were at client meetings this week, and the conversation keeps coming up. People have found me through GPT. I'm using GPT every day. I'm using it for therapy. I'm using it to find information. Search is exploding. People are finding businesses through this, but they're not attributing it correctly. So I want to talk about that as well today. But first, big tech is paying attention to chat. This is probably one of the biggest opportunities in digital marketing right in front of your face. Meta specifically is the first one to do this. The moment ChatGPT does this, you're going to see an influx of ads on ChatGPT potentially. I don't know if that's where they're going. I can't predict that. To be very frank with you, I don't think that's where they're going to go. But this is a good indication that big tech is going to start allowing people to run ads directly inside of the AI chatbot. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about how to actually optimize for the LLMs. The first thing I want to talk about is using your own data is absolutely critical. So this is a client meeting that we had this week. And as you can see, this is form submissions that they've gotten over the past couple of months or past year or so. That's 6,982 form submissions this business has gotten from their website. And so while I could do traditional things like keyword research, I could do traditional things like scanning Reddit threads, I could do traditional things like taking a look and see what my competitors are doing, there is nothing better than the actual contacts that are coming through your website. And there's nothing better than the contacts that have come through your CRM. What you can do with that data to get ahead of the curve is you can start to use ChatGPT or whatever LLM that you're using to analyze all of those form submissions to give you context of what to create content around. Generally speaking, anybody that's submitting a form and submitting that message typically has keywords that you may have never even thought of before. So for this example, what you're taking a look at is you're taking a look at 6,000 form submissions analyzed in the messages, and a share in the percentage on the left side of how many times those topics of conversations typically come up. As you can see, a lot of the strategy here is building those city plus service pages for top towns. And I'm going to show you the exact strategy that we utilize to do that for a local site here in just a minute. But you can also see that the moving and storage combo is coming up very often. So when we had a meeting with this customer, one of the key things that we were talking about is actually creating a storage promotion for the fall, which really allowed me to guide my strategy around their digital marketing campaign. Now, if you're doing this for clients, I just want to make this super clear. It is absolutely your responsibility to come prepared to meetings like this. Whether you're working for a company, whether you're being employed, whether somebody's subcontracting you, whether you're an agency, it is your responsibility to provide recommendations to that customer and be ahead of the game. The moment the customer starts controlling the meeting, the moment the customer starts telling you what to do, you've lost. The moment you become an order taker, you've lost. Your job is to understand the business well enough to guide the directional strategy of their business. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm taking a look and seeing at all of those 6,982 data points, what on average people are saying so I can get ahead of the curve. And this all really leads up to running visibility reports. If I don't know how well that customer is showing up in LLMs like ChatGPT, in this case, I ran a report and they showed up 60 out of 75 times for 75 prompts analyzed. I don't necessarily know if they're doing well or not. And I'm coming to the meeting completely unprepared when I could know how well they're doing, how well they're not doing. That's going to shape the conversation that I'm going to have with the customer. And that's going to allow me to frame things a little bit differently. So in this case scenario, you can take a look and see how many times they were visible, and you can see if they're doing well or not. Now, a lot of that visibility comes based on simple facts that is never going away in SEO, and that is the simple domain authority of a business. Generally speaking, that metric is translating into the LLMs. Domain authority was created by Moz, so that's a metric that Moz is using to take a look and see prehistorically on the domains, referring domains, the age of the domain, all of those kinds of things. It's taking a look and seeing if the domain authority is high. And so what this report is showing me in that local area, the client that I'm working with, they're fourth for the domain authority. So that tells me they're likely going to rank compared to the competition. That frames my conversation with the customer. If their domain authority was low, I probably wouldn't be so confident. I probably wouldn't commit as much to that customer because I don't think they're going to rank. LLMs are not going to recommend them. They're going to recommend businesses that have old domains and high domain authority. So step one is really understanding how your domain authority is compared to the competition, because that's going to frame your entire strategy. Now, if you're in an industry where the domain authority is extremely low, but yours is extremely high, you should be dumping resources into digital marketing because it's literally going to make you millions of dollars. If your domain authority is low, the work that you have to do is, and I'm going to talk about that in this video, is adding citations, is getting more backlinks, is getting more press releases, is getting more websites to mention your website. And the thing is sometimes these websites are artificial. Sometimes these websites don't need to have an excessive amount of domain authority, as I'm going to show you in a couple slides here, to mention your business in an LLM. In fact, there's a website that I'm potentially partnering with in Connecticut that simply just talks about businesses, but they're showing up really well in LLM. So we're doing a lot of this experiment stuff for you to take a look at so that when you go into a sales conversation, when you go into your accounts management, when you go to work on your own business, you know that you're doing this productively and you're not wasting any time. The second biggest metric that I'm seeing is reviews still play a gigantic role. And so looking at the market, you've got to really understand the business that I'm working with, how high on average are we compared to the market when it comes to reviews? Luckily, in my case scenario, I'm working with the best situation possible. This business has 1,586 reviews, where the second computer has 601. So they're 100% above average reviews compared to the top competitor. This is data that you've got to know coming into the conversation. And it's another thing where I would frame this differently if their reviews were really low compared to the competition. Because they're high, I'm basically putting all the things I own on this as a bet and saying, you're going to succeed. There's no way I'm not going to make you a ton of money here. There's just no way. There's no way this can't work. And so if I were to take a loan on this business and invest all of that capital into their digital marketing, I'm very confident that I would get that money back. However, if they were at the bottom, let's say where Ace Fan and Storage is, and that's not a stab at them at all. I don't know who they are, and I don't mean to sound like that. That's where I wouldn't put that money there. I would say you need to get more reviews. We cannot advertise right now. You're not going to rank in the LLMs. So the framing of the conversation would be a lot different when I'm working with that customer. And that's what you guys got to realize. A lot of these marketing conversations that you're having is 95% just framing correctly. If you're not framing and setting expectations correctly, you're setting people up to fail. And in fact, a lot of the times what we do in our brains in marketing is we do anchors. So the moment you say a price, the moment you say a result, the moment you say an expectation, the person, the stakeholder, the person that's listening to you has now framed that in their head. So if you say you're going to rank number 1 on Google in 30 days, that's the expectation, that's the framing. So being understanding the anchoring and the framing is really critical. So reviews are really important. Now, when we run this analysis in ChatGPT, so we'll run hundreds of keywords at a time and get a result back, we'll take a look at something called sentiment keywords in responses. And what that means is on average, all of the data that we get back, let's say it's 4,000 lines of text. What is the GPT looking at the most, and what is it saying and returning the most? And the frequency that you see here as on the left to right, highest to lowest. On the left side, you see the highest frequencies that are mentioned. It's interesting because you see insurance as the second one. So if I'm working with a moving company in this area, you think I'm going to bring up damage-free guarantee, or customers are concerned that their information is going to be broken or their stuff's going to be broken, their valuables. Then I'm going to look at packing. Do you offer packing? Do you move interstate? And then probably the most important conversation here is the BBB, as you can see on the top right there, is mentioned often. And it's really critical that you understand this information, because if you're going to optimize something for an LLM, you've got to start thinking like the LLM. And it's completely ridiculous for you to go into ChatGPT and prompt 1,000 times and do this manually when you can just get technology that does it for you really quickly for every single market. What I'm noticing is, because we have several sales conversations per week and accounts that we're working on, is that the return information is always different based on zip code. And so you've got to know specifically what in that zip code AI is looking at, because every citation is different in every single area. So when we look at the sentiment keywords and responses, we're looking to see what GPT is saying the most, and we're optimizing the website around that. And that allows you to really understand your positive mentions. So the first query that I'm zooming in here is, are there moving companies in Southington that include storage? What you'll see is not only does it mention the company that we're working with, that's why it's under a mentioned positive mention, but you'll also see the citations that it's pulling in. And the citations there are BBB and MapQuest. So we are literally living in a world where MapQuest, Yelp, BBB are becoming extremely critical for a brand's presence on the LLMs. So optimizing your customer on those different platforms is critical. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit, because the deliverables that a normal SEO would do and the deliverables that an AI SEO is going to do are going to be fundamentally different in the approach. We're going to prioritize citations, prioritize smaller but more comprehensive websites using sentiment keywords, and we're going to deprioritize these overloaded websites with irrelevant pages that get no clicks. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to focus on the small things, the 80-20, that's going to generate us the results. So when you actually search the real results, you can see what the real GPT looks like, and that's the response that you're getting. So you can see that it is accurate when you do this type of data and this type of simulation. And I recommend that you do it at least once a week for your customers or for your business. And always you're going to get different responses because it's generative. A traditional search engine is looking at the results and it's pretty much staying static. They'll change and fluctuate every now and then. But the GPT and the LLMs, it's generating a response based on its citations. So when you look at visibility scores, these are going to change very often. And so you've got to be able to run these as often as possible. Then you want to prioritize the opportunities where there's non-mentions. And this basically means that out of 15 of 25 terms when I did this report, we were not mentioned. We don't talk about military services or military moving on our site. We don't talk about pianos. We don't talk about packing supplies. We don't talk about A+ BBB ratings. And what's interesting about that is when I read that, I said, how in the world could this business not have an A+ rating on the BBB? After some discovery, what I found out after we looked at their actual BBB profile, and I actually share it with you because this is what we talked about during our meeting, they actually don't have the A+ BBB rating. And what's interesting about that is if a homeowner, for some reason, does decide that that's one of their qualifications to hire a company, the LLM didn't give us a mention there because we weren't. And we found there was one complaint that was solved, but the BBB just hasn't updated it yet. And so that just goes to show you the power of looking at a lot of these non-mentions and optimizing for that. So that becomes the topic of conversation when I work with customers is, here's where you're mentioned. Great, let's keep optimizing that. Here's where you're not mentioned. Here's the data behind it. So I'm not just guessing, I'm not just hallucinating. And then we're making the adjustments on the website based on that. And so that really leads up to what the real GPT looks like when I search that. You can see when I really search this inside of the actual ChatGPT, we were not mentioned. So it's really critical that you understand the mentions and the non-mentions and gauging the strategy around that, because you can't just guess. Now, I did want to say a comment about a lot of AI SEO tracking tools that are out there. The way that we're doing it is it's casting a net and it's returning a result. You could get tools like Ubersuggest that allow you to physically type in your prompts. The problem with that is you don't know what your customers are typing in, and they're typing in such varieties of keywords that it's better for you to cast a huge net and get a return to see what your average visibility is for a range of different keyword phrases. And so you can use tools that allow you to put in your exact prompt and get a return. We're more so leaning on the approach of casting a wide net often, see where we're mentioned and we're not mentioned. We're never going to get 100%. That's very rare, but we're going to keep optimizing as we go. And that gives me a talking conversation with the customer every time we do a meeting. So citations become critical. So every time you run one of these reports, you're going to get on average how many times a citation is mentioned and the share and percentage of that citation as well. So for example, when I did this run, and it's going to change every single time, you'll see that 2 citations, which we are completely ignoring, are being mentioned high percentage each time. That's a talking conversation that I'm going to have with the customer, and we're going to delegate some of their advertising spend to actually get promoted on some of these websites. If this one is a 19% of the share of the citations that are returning, we may want to start paying attention to that. This was the second time I did a scan. The BBB, the website I just told you about, was a 43% share of the citation. Guess what we're doing today? We're calling the BBB. We're getting the business updated. We're fixing that issue that we had. We're updating brand new photos to the BBB. We're going to potentially sponsor that listing inside of that result. And that's going to allow us, at least when the BBB is cited, we're the company that's being mentioned. And I shared this a few times on a video back in a couple of weeks ago. If you actually type in a keyword inside of ChatGPT, you can see these citations directly being mentioned right in the actual result, but it's very difficult for you to do this at scale. And so that's why we are doing this at this route. So moving forward, this is the tree company that we met with today. Yelp is one of the main citations in that area. You can't just go out and assume that the same citations are going to be for every single local business. You have to cast a wide net of multiple prompts. In this case, I think it was 25 prompts, and see which citations are the most critical. Generally speaking, in my traditional SEO route, I may have just completely ignored Yelp. I may have said, don't worry about them. They don't post your reviews, and people have their opinions about Yelp, and that's great. I understand that. But what you need to understand, Mr. Business Owner, is that when some customer goes into ChatGPT and searches to get 5 trees removed, which for you means 10 grand, you're going to be very happy you gave Yelp $500 for the year. Make sense? So what I'm doing is I'm positioning the LLM data that I'm getting in return to optimize the client for that. And I'm making it a proactive attempt as a culture in my company to ask our customers how their customers found us and report back to us that they're actually getting customers from ChatGPT. It's part of a culture thing that we're doing as well. When we looked at the visibility, this was one that we closed today. This is a business that we're going to be working with. And so you can see the visibility for this prompt example, 100 prompts, we had a very low visibility score. Now, if you were to go to the website and take a look at it, you can probably see why. They're missing some of the very basic things, like internalized pages for all of the towns they service, the different services they provide, the schema markup on the website, not responding to the reviews, the domain authority could be improved. There's a lot of these different types of optimizations, and it's not really difficult to understand as to why they're not showing up for so many terms. Now, this is for 100 prompts. If you did a smaller sample size, you might actually get a better result there. So that's why I recommend you guys try out SplashDash, because you can run these GPT visibility reports directly inside of the tool. And we're actually coming out with the Google AI overview one as well. That's also a major point of conversation that we're having with customers as well. The thing about the AI overviews, however, is that it actually uses Google SEO a lot more than GPT does. GPT really has this completely brand new algorithm of how it's recommending businesses, where you'll work with a business, they're ranking well on Google, you go into ChatGPT, they're nowhere to be found. The reason for that is some of the data that I showed you before. So if you go to SplashDash.com, you can get an account and try it for free. It's a tool that I've been working very hard on, and you can start using it for really, really inexpensive and try it out. So we've been getting some great support on it. Now, when we talk about the listings, we are really considering optimizing and sponsoring a lot of these key citations. Traditional SEO, this would be absolutely ridiculous. Why would you spend $600 per year to sponsor a listing that nobody goes on when you can put that towards Google ads, Facebook ads, and your own SEO strategy and your content? Well, the reality of the fact is we're not really doing it for humans anymore. We're doing it for the agents that are crawling these websites to generate a response. We're basically doing robot experience optimization, where we're literally just trying to give the AIs enough information to feel confident to recommend us. Because I did some research and we're listed on another website where we are the top result. And every time you prompt that specific website with keywords in GPT, that's what it recommends, because it's reading it top down. When GPT looks at the structure of a website page, it will look at it in code and write and markdown and all those kinds of things. If you're listed at the top, regardless if it's sponsored or not, it will recommend it as well. So we're really looking into getting these citations sponsored for a lot of our clients and presenting these opportunity citations. Traditionally, we're nowhere to be found when it comes to Yelp. And so if I have this information and I come to the meeting and I say, this is where this is showing up a lot in your market for a GPT response, that's what we're going to focus on. Now, whether these companies right here are focusing on that because they understand that I don't know. And I'd have to do some discovery and see if that's why they're doing it. But it's definitely an area of opportunity that we're considering as well. So this is what I wanted to share with you guys too. The tool that I just told you about, SplashDash tool, we've been working on for quite some time now. I asked GPT a question. I said, when did this tool come out? And what's interesting about that is an article that one of my friends wrote on his website was the first place where it found that information. It didn't even find that information directly on my website, where we're living in an era now where these directory websites or these listicles or these websites that list different businesses are actually becoming really popular. So if I were doing digital marketing and I was in your state or I was working for a company, I may want to create an outside resource that I own that does this type of content externally from my website. Because if you take a look at the article, it's basically an article that talks about an event that I had for an opening, or I'm sorry, for the launch of it, and it links back to my website. But I found that it was interesting that this website does not have an extreme domain authority. It doesn't have extreme links to it, but it's relevant to what the question that was asked, and it's external, and GPT loves those external links. So creating external citations like this are going to become extremely important in traditional SEO as well as LLM SEO. Now, the AI service area pages are something that are really, really important because you obviously want to optimize for LLM SEO, not just for the town that the customer is in, but for the towns that they're located on in different places. That's where these service area pages really become important, having pages targeting exact keyword phrases that people are searching directly. Now, we're using a lot of AI to actually do this, where we're actually creating a page template and then we use a platform called Duda. We're using Duda dynamic pages to create all of these at once and using a ton of OpenAI API credits to do so. So we're actually physically doing these one by one. So anytime we get a client, we'll make them a website. Usually it's one page, and then we'll create dozens of these that are optimized for SEO. And generally speaking, we've been getting good results for that. So if you take a look at the citations, back to what we were talking about, this is a text message that we received from one of our clients. And it's funny because we've never gotten a text message like this before up until the evidence of new strategy working. I'm always gathering evidence from the customers we work with that this stuff is working so that I can present it to you, so that I can give you confidence and understanding as to why you should really pay attention to AEO. And you can see that it's the best looking BBB site they've ever seen. Now, a lot of that comes with photos, right? I talk to my team all the time about the things that AI can do and the things that AI can't do. Because if you're working on a specific listing, let's say we are working on the BBB, and you want to make sure that all of the information is optimized on that listing. See how we're embedding videos, we're embedding photos, we're utilizing tools like Yext to make sure that all of this information is optimized. And we're creating that synergy across all of the platforms, that the relevancy of this business is being updated on an ongoing basis. So if you're an agency and you're not providing these kinds of services, I highly recommend that you really focus on the things that AI can't do, which really is going out, getting photos. When you get this media, you can publish it on their website. You can publish it on Yext, which allows you to manage your citations across the web. You can publish it on these individual citations. You can add it to their Google business profile. You can add it to their Google local service ads link. So you can put it in so many of these different places. All you got to do is get a photographer to do this on a quarterly basis, and you're surefire to make sure that the citations are above market average. So we're creating a lot of features inside of SplashDash right now that'll tell you exactly how many photos you need to overcompete in each of those areas by analyzing all of the businesses you're competing with, taking a look at how many photos they have, creating an average, letting you know if you're above average, below average, and how many photos you need. So you can tell a photographer, a videographer, whatever it is person you're working with, if you have them in-house, we have them in-house because we see the value of this to get that information to scale it. So going forward, you want to monitor the competition closely. And this is what I was talking about prior to that. You know, if there's 12 photos in an average listing in this marketplace, and we're putting up 100 quality photos, there's more for the LLMs to read about our business, both visually and contextually. Because every time you upload a photo to one of these listings, you can put up alt text, you can put up descriptions, you can add keyword-rich descriptions in all of those photos. So do you think we're going to be positively recommended in this area if the average number of photos is 12 and we have plus 39? the average number of reviews is 485. We have plus 1587. Again, guys, this comes down to setting the correct expectation when you're working with a customer. The customer's satisfaction, your business's satisfaction, your expectations of your marketing employee, whatever that looks like, is ultimately going to come down to the expectations. If you can't set the right expectations, you are bound to fail. Now, with that, always educating the customer in our situation that they cannot expect people to search for them. And so creating the brand search volume growth, which is a key thing for LLMs to identify your business, making sure people are searching for you directly. Paid media still becomes critical because people will search when they need you, but they also need to know that you exist prior to that. And that's where we do ads. So guys, thank you for watching. If you have questions about AEO and you want to learn more and you want me to send me your business or send me your URL and you want a sample of a SplashDash report, I can kind of guide you on how I would approach that. So I encourage you to get in touch with me. I won't charge you anything. I'm genuinely curious to see a bunch of different use cases around the country because I'm trying to build up my strategy and my thought process around AEO and LLMO. So if you're interested, try SplashDash. But other than that, guys, I appreciate your time and I'll see you guys in the next one.